The Washington Football Maniacs.
Hey everybody, welcome back here to another video here on the Washington Football Maniacs. My name is Greg, and of course this channel is dedicated for news and commentary, maybe not so much news, but more commentary for the Washington Commanders, formerly known as the Washington Football Team, who was formerly known as these Washington Redskins. If you are down with that, please make sure that you consider subscribing to this channel. And of course, when you do, hit that notification bell so you won't miss any other video releases. So for the Washington Commanders and the Terry McLaurin saga, it seems like we are just waiting on pins and needles for something to happen. And we keep getting what I've felt was like spoon-fed type of information of, why is this happening? I mean, why are we not done with this? Why are things, breaking the way they are? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So there is a Sports Illustrated piece from Caleb Skinner just about 3 hours ago that he presented this, and we're going to kind of take a look at this. The real reason for Terry McLaurin's hold in what the Commanders revealed. And he says it's not just about the money. A new report sheds light on what's really holding up a contract extension for the Washington Commanders star receiver. It goes on to say, the saga that is the Terry McLaurin trade request and contract extension dispute only grows legs the longer that it goes on. Very, very true. As things go on, we continue to start digging, and putting together pieces that, well, quite frankly, sometimes some of us probably come up with, yours truly as well. And so, the longer this goes on, the more that speculation does start to kind of become, in our minds, fact, right? But the Washington Commanders and McLaurin have seemingly been far apart on the deal, but the overall consensus is that his trade request was to force the hand of the front office. All right. I think a lot of us, even myself, kind of said that trade's probably not going to happen, but it's part of the deal. It's part of the negotiations. That's just what you were going to hear from Terry McLaurin's camp, because nothing else is really budged. And so whenever they start talking trades, that's to kind of jumpstart the engine of these conversations. The expectation is that McLaurin will return to the Commanders' offense ready to rock and roll with Jaden Daniels and Deebo Samuel, and that good news seems to be drawing ever nearer, according to Scoop City's Diana Rossini. Now, of course, Diana came out with this earlier in the week, and there are a lot of people who are like, "You're not a beat reporter. How do you know? You're just coming up with dreaming up stuff on your own as well." But a lot of other people seem to feel like that she had some good news for us. But as we get deeper into this, certainly a lot of people are like, I'm not going to believe anything until I see it from like the likes of like John Kim, for instance, JP Finley, those guys like that. Everyone feels good that this is going to get done. It's just when and how do they land there? Yes, he asked for a trade, but does anybody really think he wants to go somewhere else? No. And I mentioned this, and you can go back and look at the other videos as well. I mentioned why it didn't make sense for Terry McLaurin to get traded. I also mentioned, okay, if he does, here's the reason why it does make sense for the Commanders. But honestly, even I would say I'm probably kind of reaching as far as why I thought it would make sense. JP Finley, he spoke more about Rossini's comments, said talking with her about McLaurin's situation, everyone feels good this is going to get done. And this is going to get done. I feel like most people feel it is going to happen, but we're getting tired of this getting stretched further, because honestly, we feel like the longer that this is taking place, the longer that this is happening, the more fractured that the relationship is becoming between Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders, and that's not something that you want to hear. It would be great if McLaurin and the front office could come to terms on extension sooner rather than later, absolutely. But all signs point toward him returning to the team that drafted him out of Ohio State. McLaurin has been through the tough times with Washington, has finally enjoyed some success with the team. It would be hard to imagine him deciding to leave with the direction of the team having a positive momentum. Again, yeah, what sense does it make? You finally get to the NFC conference title with the team that drafted you. You went through blood, sweat, and tears, low points of this franchise, and now you're hitting what has come off to be one of the most successful seasons that Washington has had since their 1991 Super Bowl season, and then you want to leave. It doesn't make sense to anybody. The real holdup. So the real scoop, what is the real holdup? The Commanders' offense has relied heavily on McLaurin over the years, so losing him during a time they are seen as contenders would be a huge punch to the offense's guts. I will tell you, after the performance I saw in preseason, even though that none of the starters and none of the important bench players played in this game, you could tell there's not a lot of depth. I just mentioned that in my last video. There's not a lot of depth for the Washington Commanders at wide receiver. At first, I was like, what are you talking about? But then the more I look at it, no, we need Terry. We need him. It was first speculated that in past was due to the two sides being miles apart when it came to money, but it has emerged that it is the language and incentives that are holding up everything. McLaurin is deserving of a top 10 contract at his position, but there is no denying that he could see a slip in production as he enters the later half of his NFL career. Okay, so yeah, I mean, that has been argued that because that he's not necessarily played as many games as some of the other top stars in the league because they've been able to play more playoff games than he has. They've been used a little bit more, possibly. That maybe he is still fresh. And that's kind of the argument that Terry McLaurin has made, that he's got a lot of traction on his tires, and you're not going to see him slow down. That's what he's saying. The only thing is, I feel like the more that he holds out, regardless of how good he is, you need to have some reps before the regular season starts. And for McLaurin, I think he's probably going to start off a slow start if things don't get done until maybe right at the time that the season starts. You would have been in no preseason games. You have not practiced. You've not done a thing with the team at all. You're going to be rusty. I don't care how good you are. You're going to be a little rusty. And so people may look at this and be like, okay, you've just signed this new contract extension, so you're going to have to you're going to have to prove your worth. And that's how people are going to be when this contract gets signed. So that's why I feel like it's very important. I think the team needs to get a deal done this week, because I feel like Terry needs to get out in the field. He needs to play a little bit, even if it's just a series. He needs to get out there on the field, get into the swing of things. And so he's back into it mentally. He's, taken some hits on the field. He's called a pass or two, and get things rolling so that we can put all this behind us. So by the start of the season, we know he's good. And knowing that this next game is going to be the dress rehearsal for the offensive, defensive starters, you need to make sure that Terry is in there to play. And so that's why I feel like we need to get this done this week. But overall, this is not necessarily anything that's like breaking news by any stretch, because we kind of start to feel that it was probably more of the incentives than anything else. I mean, you look at some of the other receivers who got deals that turned out to be, well, you know what? This deal is actually worth less each year, but it's more guaranteed money. And I think when it comes down to that, honestly, the incentives, the guarantees, and stuff like that is becoming more important than just the overall dollar figure. I mean, how many times have you seen this huge dollar figure contract for players, but because of injury or whatever, or maybe they just don't live up to those contracts, they don't necessarily see all of that money, because it's not all guaranteed money. Those contracts get reworked, to lighten the burden of between salary caps each year and stuff like that. And so, a lot of times they don't necessarily see all that money. So by saying that, players know that guarantees are a lot more important than the overall dollar figure, that in the long run you wind up making more money off of those guarantees because that money is going into your pocket rather than this big inflated number that in the end didn't mean as much, at least not to the player because they didn't see it all. So a deal should get done. And again, whenever you hear about all this stuff, it is all about it's the dance. It's like the mating dance, right? It's these players and these front office people, they perform the dance with each other, and eventually it gets solved, and the player's fine, and they never had a problem with anything. Terry's not really mentioned that the trade thing, we all kind of saw through that. At least most of us saw through that. He doesn't want to leave. Terry knows he doesn't want to leave. Now, if this team was like 4-13 last year and showed no signs of getting better, or maybe it was going to take another 3 years to get to where we were last year, then you could kind of see Terry saying, you know what, I don't know if I'm going to be able to waste my time with a team that is not going to give me an opportunity for a ring. I do need to go somewhere else. I want to get paid, but I also want a championship. And now he's with a team that we all feel can be contenders. And so, and that's not just, crazy homeboy talk. I mean, that's straight up anybody who is really serious about these teams in the NFL understand the Commanders are back. Don't see a regression. So if I'm Terry McLaurin, I want to be a part of that because honestly, it's going to mean more to Terry if this team, maybe not this year, next year, or whatever, went all the way to the Super Bowl, won it, and to say that you were with this team from when they were the laughing stock, when the whole franchise was the laughing stock of the NFL. You had a bad owner. Just really, it was a place where it's like, just go and get your experience in until you can get paid somewhere else, to a team that you can be proud of. Got a great owner, you got a franchise quarterback, and you make it to the playoffs, you make it deep in the playoffs, and you win Super Bowl. It will mean more to guys like Terry McLaurin, Tress Way. Yeah, I mean, it will mean a lot to everybody, but those guys especially, because they really been through it. And so they deserve it. And I think Terry, even if he went somewhere else this year, let's say he did get traded and he got traded to a team that went all the way and won the Super Bowl, it would be great because he deserves that ring. And I would be so proud of Terry to have gotten a Super Bowl championship. But I think deep down inside, he knows it would mean more. It would mean more if it was with that team that drafted him and the team that he is stuck with. So by saying all that, I think that a deal does get done this week. I am not going to, post titles saying deal's definitely getting done this week, because then I'm going to have more people mad at me because, I'm misleading them. I am just telling you that I will find it illogical for it to keep going the way it's going for another week. I don't see what the purpose is. And I just don't see why we would want it to last that long, like into the regular season. Even though there has been some other players who have forced it into the regular season or right before the regular season began, and the deal got done. But honestly, if I'm Adam Peters, and I'm both Adam Peters and Terry McLaurin, either one of those guys, I want a deal done this week. Yeah, certainly Terry wants a deal done as soon as possible. But if I'm Adam Peters, I want this done as soon as possible, because looking at what we saw on Friday night, again, I realize it was preseason and we had our third and fourth string people in there. I need reassurance that I have as much help for Jaden Daniels with the wide receivers as I possibly have, and for all intents and purposes, Terry McLaurin is the clear cut wide receiver one, and so we have got to have him. So that's my opinion. Let me see what happens. But folks, I mean, hey, if you enjoyed this, please smash that like button. Leave me a comment. Let me know. I know I got some regular commenters, and I appreciate you guys immensely. You don't know how much I appreciate you. But words can't express it enough. But they're so good about making their point known and commenting. And whether if I agree or disagree, I just like the fact that they're telling it like it is, the way they see it, and they give some very good opinions. One guy I'll shout out. I've disagreed with and agreed with at the same time, but old Tiger, if you see Tiger there in the comments, he's always good about commenting, and he has well thought out views, and so I really appreciate him. Again, I don't always agree with him, but I appreciate what he does. That being said, folks, also, if you're enjoying this video, or I'm sorry, if you're enjoying this channel, why not subscribe to the Washington Football Maniacs? It's free. Doesn't cost you anything, maybe just time to sit back and listen to me, babble on and on and on about the Commanders and Terry McLaurin and whatnot. But I love this team. This is the reason why that I create this channel, because I love talking Washington sports, especially football, and I love the Commanders, love the Redskins. It doesn't matter what you call them. There's so much love for them, and I cannot wait for the new season to start. Folks, if you enjoy this, you know what to do. I will see you in the next one.